Alright, so we're going to do a quick drawing of the shoulder muscles. Let's see, let's bring it down here. We'll do the rib cage. And the skull. And the scapula. And I guess the humerus as well. Right, so let's do this side view as well. Let's move this up out of the way. Okay. Do the humerus. Alright, so the front view, we don't need to do the front view. Wouldn't hurt though, would it? Okay. First thing that we do, I guess I should change colors here, is the teres minor. Teres minor teres describes the form, I guess, in Latin. I don't know. But it's kind of this it's basic muscle shape, kind of a hot dog type shape. Its point of insertion is right here on the scapula, and it goes to the outside of the head of the humerus. And the minor in the name, that means there's a teres major. So the minor just really is referring to the size of the muscle. Major is it's the same type of muscle. It's actually its partner in a way. They work against each other. It's thin and tendinous over here in the attachment of the head of the humerus. And it's a form that would show up, especially when you're looking at old masterworks. If you're looking at the model, it may not be very easy to see unless it was an athlete you were looking at. Next is the infraspinatus. Infraspinatus means inferior to the spine of the scapula. So that gives you the location of it. And it's all in this area of the scapula, its origin, insertion, also head of the humerus, right above the teres minor. And it overlaps the teres minor. And it's kind of a thin, flat, kind of triangular muscle. So let me go back into that, the overlapping portion of it. And you still see a reference to the top of the teres minor. So the teres minor form does kind of show up. So that tells you that the infraspinatus is probably a thinner muscle. And that the teres minor is a more substantial form. That it's enough that it's pushing through that infraspinatus. Did I say that right? I'll have to go back and check. Alright, so the next one we could do is the teres major. And that one is the same kind of form as the teres minor, but it's the bottom of the scapula, and it goes up and it attaches more to the inside. Of the humerus, the front. So what that does is you have the teres minor that's pulling from the outside, so that means it's turning your humerus towards the outside. Teres minor or major is pulling the humerus towards the inside, so they kind of work against each other. And the teres major is a very prominent form, especially in an athlete, and that is always the easiest way to identify the bottom of the scapula, is by this form. On a very thin person, the scapula does show up, the boniness of the scapula shows up so you can see it very clearly, but on an athlete, that gets obscured by a lot of the muscle, and this particular muscle is the way you're going to see the bottom of the scapula. So a lot of this is, to help you when you identify an old master drawing. So you see, like Michelangelo will identify, there's 3 muscles here so far, but he's going to identify 4 forms because he's going to identify that overlap in a certain way. So if that helps you. Next one is the supraspinatus. And supraspinatus is superior to the spine of the scapula, and really it attaches to the head of the humerus. It fills in this space, this cavity, or not cavity, but this plane that's above the spine of the scapula. And on a bodybuilder or an athlete, it does probably a lot of shrugs or something like that. It gets kind of full. It's kind of a full muscle. But on the average person, not a big deal, really. And it gets covered by another muscle. So on a bodybuilder, it shows through that other muscle, but on most other people, that other muscle is the more prominent form, and we'll be doing that as well. So let me see if I can outline these a little bit better. Well, I guess they're probably okay. Alright, so the next one is the rhomboids. So the rhomboid muscle, which, let me see if I can find a different color. Rhomboid muscle is named after the shape. It's a rhomboid, I guess. Attaches to the 7th cervical vertebrae. That's the base of the neck. And it comes down, I think, to about the 5th rib, the 5th thoracic vertebrae. But it's mostly this kind of shape right here. It attaches to the spine, but it doesn't really cover the spine. It's more tendinous there. The spine becomes still very prominent. And the border of the scapula, the medial border of the scapula. And it's plural rhomboids because up here there's a smaller portion called the rhomboid minor, and the larger portion is the rhomboid major. And for our purposes, we could probably just think of that whole thing together. But again, if you're looking at an old master drawing, you might see that division there, even though a muscle covers that as well. There's so many variations. To me, it's just important to know this whole shape is a singular form. Okay. And next is the trapezius. So let's get something more like that. It gets its name from trapezoid. It actually attaches to the 12th thoracic vertebrae. So that's the bottom of the rib cage, right? It attaches along the spine, attaches to the base of the skull, and attaches to the nuchal ligament. The nuchal ligament is a ligament that attaches from the base of the skull to the 7th cervical vertebrae, and it's a fin that just gives you that profile, the back of the neck. You know, so your spine really goes to the middle of the skull on the inside. So when you're feeling the back of your neck, if you lean your head forward, you know, just lean it forward, that prominent bump there in the back is not bone, but it's this nuchal ligament, this very tight tendon. So the trapezius connects to that as well. And then it connects to the scapula, spine of the scapula, acromion process, but it also attaches to, and I should have had this, the clavicle. So if we look at the scapula, let me move this out of the way. Scapula in the back, clavicle, the trapezius connects to this, and this part of the clavicle. It gives you your shoulder. Like if you feel that area right here, that's the trapezius, and it's a thin sheet, but when it comes wrapping around here, it feels like a very thick muscle. It's just wrapping around. So I could have brought this skull up a little bit higher. I didn't give very much of a neck there, did I? And it comes on the inside here, and it comes down like that. It's thicker up here because it's covering all these muscles. So it has, and it wraps around here, gives more thickness. Up here, down here it's thinner, and the bottom triangle of it is tendon right here. It's tendinous here, and around the 7th cervical it's tendinous. I don't know if I picked the right color. Okay. So covers all these other muscles as well, the rhomboids and the supraspinatus. So sometimes you might see the rhomboids underneath it there. This is going to be kind of a full area anyway, partially because of the supraspinatus, but also because of the fact that this muscle wraps around like that. So from the front, so this is the muscle shows up like this from the front. From the side, something like that. It's a thin muscle, but up in the shoulder area it's thicker. All right. I hope that helps. I apologize. It's kind of an ugly drawing, isn't it?